We're going to have some fun today. The Baltimore Ravens, they get him. They signed Jaire Alexander. We talk about it all coming up next on this.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into an instant reaction edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day, your first listen each and every single day, or maybe your second listen if you tuned into our episode this morning. We're free and available on all podcasting platforms. That includes in video form on YouTube, where you can like and subscribe to the channel, and in audio form where you can follow along and subscribe as well. We're 5 days a week on Locked On Ravens, so regularly scheduled content is Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. Eastern time, but you know we go live for every single piece of Ravens big news, and oh man, we're going to have a celebrate. Look, I even got the celebratory. If you're on YouTube, you can see I got the palm tree shirt out, which if you've been a listener of Locked On Ravens for a while, you know this is the celebratory shirt. And the reason I'm so hyped up and excited about this is because I have been wishing for this day, all right? I've wanted Jaire Alexander for years on this team. I thought he would have been a perfect player for this team. Him next to Marlon Humphrey. You add Nate Wiggins into this equation. So appreciate everybody for being here, by the way. You can tell I'm a little excited, and hopefully everybody else tuning in is excited as well. As I pull up some of the comments here. Appreciate everybody for being here today. And I'm almost speechless, and it's my job to talk about this show. And talk about the show, talk about the Ravens on this show. I'm tripping over my words here, but you know what, man, we're gonna celebrate. I can't even believe it. I cannot even believe it. We'll talk about the Ravens getting Jaire, what it means for their cornerback room, what it means for their secondary, because it is stacked. And I'll say this off the bat, and look, you can clip this up, if you're a fan of another team, or, maybe you can use it against me at the end of the season. I don't know how you cannot call the Ravens the Super Bowl favorites right now. I don't know how you can do it. The Ravens are clear. They are clear Super Bowl favorites with this move. You add Jaire Alexander onto the squad, into the secondary, and the fact of the matter is, you look at the deal, you look at the actual contract that was signed here. He didn't break the bank. It was a deal for $4 million. It can go up to $6 million with incentives. That, to me, signals that Jaire Alexander wants to win. I talked about it literally on today's show this morning, where if Jaire wants to win, take a lesser contract for a year, play to win a Super Bowl, and then go somewhere else, or even maybe re-sign with the Ravens, who knows, on a bigger contract to get him one last huge payday, Baltimore would be the spot for him. He would absolutely be, it'd be a perfect fit, because he can play on a team to win that championship, and then he can also go and get the money. It's the best of both worlds. And I think Lamar reaching out to him was a big deal. Obviously, those two go way back. They reunite in Baltimore after their days at Louisville. I'm sure something that they have probably talked about a lot since they got drafted back in 2018. There's the viral clip of Jaire celebrating after Lamar got drafted. I essentially am talking a lot about my points on today's show. And look, that show lasted, about 6 hours with Lamar's comments, and now we got the actual move happening. And, Cam's saying it right here. The Ravens replaced Brandon Stevens with Jaire Alexander, and you also replace Marcus Williams with Malachi Starks. That is two clear upgrades for you in your secondary. I have the highest expectations for this secondary. Jaire is an incredible player. Let's talk about Jaire, the player, a little bit. Let's get into who he is. Now, we know the injuries are a factor, right? Jaire has only played in 7 games in each of the last 2 seasons. But when he is on, he is on. He is a 2-time Pro Bowler. He's a guy that will force turnovers for you, but he had his career year in 2022 with 5. He's not going to be the super high interception player. He hasn't been that most seasons. In his 7 years in the league, he's only had 12 interceptions, but that's not necessarily what you're getting him for. You're getting him for a couple of different reasons. First of all, I love the versatility the Ravens can now throw out. Not that they couldn't before, but this truly, you can move Marlon inside to the slot. You can rotate guys in and out on the outside. We know Baltimore loves their 3 cornerback rotations on the outside with a slot guy. So you can either put Marlon in there, you can put Kyle Hamilton down in the slot, Malachi Starks can play in the slot. Like, you have so many players that can do that for you. And now you add a shutdown cornerback in Jaire, who, again, when he's healthy, he's still a top 10 corner in the league, in my opinion. He is still a top 10 corner in the league when he's healthy. Now, the thing is he has to stay healthy, but this is kind of what we talked about with DeAndre Hopkins, where when he's healthy, right, he's only been healthy in about one of the last 4 seasons, one of the last 3, if I remember correctly. But 3 of those years for DeAndre, he's been hurt, he's been in and out of lineups, but when he's healthy, he can still contribute to you. The difference with Jaire is he is still like in the smack dab of his prime here. I mean, Jaire, he's not old. He's not old. He's only 28. He's only 28 years old. So to me, this is a player that you can have for this season. He plays really well. I would reward him. Now, I don't know if the cap situation for Baltimore would be able to accommodate him and Marlon and, all the extensions that they're going to have to figure out. But I think that Jaire, because of the injuries, has been underrated. And I'm sure that's part of why he did take a deal for less money here. Right? It's a big conversation. It's a big conversation with the health. But here's the thing. It'd be different if Jaire were signing with Baltimore to be their number 1 cornerback. Because the thing is, Baltimore didn't need Jaire Alexander. They didn't need him to win a Super Bowl. But man, does he help their chances. Man, does he help them out. Man, I cannot believe this is real. And the fact that it was such a quick turnaround, I mean, Lamar must have known something, right? Lamar must have known something was going on there with Jaire. There's no – Derrick calls up Jaire at 4:30 yesterday. Hey, Jaire, you want to come play? Jaire says yes. He comes – nah, something had to be happening, right? Something had to be happening. So, man, I tell you, this has been like, for me, 4 or 5 years in the making of me wanting Jaire on the Ravens for the fact that I thought he'd be such a good fit. This is like – celebration maximum for me, and I'm glad that we can do it all here together on Locked On Ravens. I love these live shows because we can interact in the chat. It's awesome, and I forgot about this too. Iconic, talking about replacing Arthur Millette with Chidobe Awuzie. Chidobe Awuzie is your 4th cornerback now, and you can do a lot with him too. Like all of that. Now you have that secondary. Let's just go over the secondary right now. Not even just the cornerback room, because we talked about those guys. Marlon Humphrey, Jaire Alexander, Nate Wiggins, Chidobe Awuzie, TJ Tampa, et cetera in that room. But then you also have Kyle Hamilton and Malachi Starks. You have a big 5, a starting 5 in basketball, let's call it here. A starting 5 of Kyle Hamilton, Malachi Starks, Marlon Humphrey, Jaire Alexander, and Nate Wiggins. It's the new no-fly zone. It is the new no-fly zone. But again, everybody has to stay healthy. But this is also a big deal where, okay, what if Marlon has to miss a game or 2? Or what if Nate Wiggins has to be on the sideline for a little bit? And of course, knock on wood, that doesn't happen. This is such important depth. It is such important depth for the Ravens because we've seen years that have been ruined by cornerback injuries. You can never have enough corners. And the Ravens are a team that, again, they wait things out, right? And I talk about this all the time. If you've been listening to me here on the show, I talk about this all the time, where they like to see markets develop. And they're never going to be a team, at least usually. I know 2022 when they signed Marcus Williams, Morgan Moses, et cetera, that was maybe the exception of the rule. But they usually never go and spend $100 million on, 5 free agents on day one. They like to keep the money. They like to be strategic with it, and they'd like to see how things develop here. If the Ravens had blown away all their money on the first couple of days of free agency, and then they wouldn't have had the opportunity to sign a Jaire potentially. And I know that the deal itself is so small in the grand scheme of things relative to what he could have made that, yeah, maybe they still could have snuck it in there. But, I cannot get this point across enough. I already was having the Ravens in that top tier upper echelon Super Bowl contender this year, right? The roster was already that good. Jaire pushes them to me. They're the Super Bowl favorite. I'm going to pick them to win the Super Bowl every single time now. And it's not just me. Oh, I'm a host of a Ravens show. I cover the Ravens. Like, no, I'm objective with it, right? I'm objective. I didn't know if Baltimore in that roster was going to be able to beat Philly. I think they had a shot to. They definitely had a shot to, but it wasn't that clear cut to me. But with Philly losing some of their guys, they replenished it in some ways. I think Baltimore's roster is the best roster in football with Jaire being added. And yeah, Charlie's saying $6 million for Jaire is it's unbelievable. It is unreal how big of a steal this is. And that's the thing too. If they had signed him to like a $20 million deal, they had to cut somebody or maybe let somebody go next offseason to do it. Yeah, we'd be having a different conversation, but it is such a no risk. I'm not even calling it low risk. It is no risk with Jaire and that talent. When you get him for that little, like, yes, the injury, and I saw someone, I can't find the comment, I apologize, but I saw some people talking about how for Jaire, yes, the talent is legitimate, but the injury concerns scare you. I don't blame you at all if you're on the injury train with Jaire. But it just, the money itself is so minuscule in the grand scheme of things that, at least for a player like Jaire's talent, that, you know, at this point, it's over with for a lot of this league. And look, we see in the division, you got Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. You got DK Metcalf. Browns have receivers. You know, you have to account for that. I'm going to be going up against tough receivers for the whole year. You start off with a lot of tough games. They can start quickly with Jaire Alexander. And this is another thing. I talked about this on the show this morning. So again, a lot of what I said this morning is relevant to the show right now. The Ravens listen to Lamar. And I want to get into that in the second part of the show because there is so much we have to talk about with this. I'm so pumped up and I'm excited we get to react to it live. So be sure to stay tuned. We got plenty coming up next on the Instant Reaction edition of Locked On Ravens. First, this show was brought to you by Monarch Money. And if you ever checked your bank account and wondered where all my money go, you are not alone. I have been there. Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, and more, it's really easy to lose track. But that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is not just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center, so you can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. And you can stop just managing your money and start building your wealth. Now, for me, when I started using Monarch, I realized how much I was spending on things I had no idea I was spending that much money on. So now I'm able to budget smarter and save more. Plus, you can manage money with your partner, and it's smoother than ever to do so. You can track your shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com, 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Back on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher instantly reacting to you on this Wednesday. Hopefully your Wednesday's going well. Mine certainly got a lot better. The Ravens always make these moves when I'm doing something, by the way. They always make these moves when I'm doing something. Now, luckily, I wasn't tied up for the 3 hours I was when Rashod Bateman got signed to his extension. But I tell you, I was out and about. I was doing stuff with that extension. And then here I'm doing stuff, and I check my phone, and I'm like, this has to be a typo, right? Because I couldn't believe it. And then I couldn't believe the money they got him for. The Ravens signed Jaire Alexander. One of the best days I think ever I've had on this show, because this is me. Look, sometimes you just got to speak it into existence. And to me, if you've been listening to me every day, I tried so hard to speak this thing into existence. And everyone was like, there's no way, there's no way, there's no way. This was probably the only way this could happen. Jaire gets cut. He wants to win a Super Bowl. The deal is not going to break Baltimore's bank. And here we are. And here we are. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. Jaire is such a good player, shutdown corner, really good cover guy. And, you know, again, for him, he's not going to be the super high turnover player for them. At least, you know, he could be in this defense with how many guys are. Because, look, where do you want to throw the ball? Where do you want, unless you're Joe Burrow, who does have a couple of elite targets to throw to, which, again, the Ravens now have 3 elite corners plus 1.5. I'm going to call Malachi half an elite safety because he hasn't played a snap yet. So I think Malachi can be great, but you know, I want to be objective with it and say he hasn't played a snap yet. 1.5 elite safeties. Where are you throwing the ball to? Where are you throwing the ball to? Because, oh, hey, you don't want to challenge Marlon Humphrey? That's all right. Well, here's Nate Wiggins. Oh, Nate Wiggins is playing great. He's a really good corner. Oh, well, we don't want to challenge him. Let's go on to the third guy. Oh, yeah, that's just a Pro Bowler in Jaire Alexander. Whoa, where else are we going to throw the ball to? What about the tight ends? Well, you got Kyle Hamilton coming down to cover that guy. or Roquan being in coverage on that. Like this defense is stacked. This team is stacked. This to me is the best secondary the Ravens, have had in a long time, maybe ever. This roster is by far the best roster Lamar Jackson has ever had in the era that he's been with the team. And you now have a situation where, now you got to run the ball, try to get them that way. Hey, the Ravens were a pretty good run defense, a la, hey, the best in the league last season against the run. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Everything is laid out in front of us, all right? There's a difference between just blindly saying a team is a Super Bowl contender or blindly saying they're the favorites and then ignoring stuff. Literally, where's the hole on this roster? Right? Because the last thing I said on this morning's show, I just was on it this morning, I guess. I knew what I was talking about. What I said this morning is that the last hole the Ravens needed to fill was in the secondary, right? And I talked about safety with our Darius, but if it's not a safety, Jaire Alexander would do it. Like, that would be it. And now I think Jalen Armour-Davis probably moves to safety full-time. If I had to guess, assuming he makes the roster, he could maybe stay at corner, but we know the Ravens are experimenting there. Man, I can't believe it. I cannot believe it. $6 million for Jaire Alexander. This was the last hole that the Ravens needed to fill. And here they are together, Lamar, and I'm looking right now on social media with Lamar and Jaire reuniting. They're the clips. And again, like Lamar is a master recruiter here. I mean, as I said, when the Ravens hear Lamar says something, the Ravens listen. This is a partnership. And look, the Ravens know how good Jaire Alexander is, all right? Like, it's not just, oh, wow, Lamar turned us on to this really good corner. Who is this guy? No, of course it didn't go that way. The Ravens understand how good of a player Jaire Alexander is. But we saw Lamar back in 2023. He said, hey, I'd love it if I played with Odell Beckham Jr. or DeAndre Hopkins, right? That was kind of Lamar's thing. The Ravens signed Odell to appease Lamar and to get him in the building and say, hey, Lamar, we hear you, and here's one of your guys. And then a couple years later, now DeAndre is on the board. And then Lamar says, go get him, Eric. And he probably, now looking back on it, he knew something. He had to have known something. But regardless, I'm sure Lamar did have those conversations. Lamar did have conversations, I'm sure. This organization listens to their star player. And that's what I love, because I said on this morning's show, some organizations would just laugh the guy off or not take their opinion into account. Man, that to me is the big thing. And I see people talking about the comments. Guard, it's possibly a weak spot. I hear you for sure. Interior, that probably is the next question. That's a weak spot. But this roster-wise, in terms of who they could add, where's an addition area for them? Secondary was that. Safety, corner, it was that. Add one more guy. At this point, they're just going to trust with they trust with who they have on the offensive line, right? That is what it is. Falele, yes, that's a question mark. Who's going to win the left guard spot? Yeah, that's a question mark too. 100%. The roster's not perfect. It's not a perfect roster, but it is so extremely strong right now that there are so many ways. And I see people talking about Trenton Simpson as well, with Jaire being added into this fold, by the way. And I said this, you don't need to play two inside linebackers on the field at the same time together. It's not a necessity that you do. To me, with what Baltimore has, the reason why they played two inside linebackers together so frequently in the final years of PQ was because, he was really good for them. He and Roquan played well off of each other. If Trenton Simpson isn't cutting it for you, you can just play dime. You can play multiple DB packages and have Roquan by himself at that position, and then you can move a guy up in the box with him, depending on what looks you're getting from the offense. Like, there are so many things you can do with Jaire on the field. And I mentioned some of them earlier. Like, you can put Marlon in the slot. You can move guys down into nickel. You can play your base defense too, but if Trenton isn't performing for you, it is what it is. And the fact that they now have Marlon Humphrey, Nate Wiggins, Jaire Alexander in this cornerback room, if one of them goes down, you just have another all-pro or Pro Bowl or quality level player to throw at the offenses. And that to me is a really important thing, because, you can have your stars, and Jaire certainly is one. I'm not saying he's not, but you can have your stars, but having guys that can replace your stars and having another star to replace a star, by the way, that to me is the big thing. So Jaire is super aware, like he knows how to track the football, something that we know is Ravens cornerback could not do last year in Brandon Stevens, and unfortunately how that went. But he's a playmaker. He is a playmaker. He accelerates really well. I mean, you just look at him, and I'm going to dive a little bit more into the film and the tape, but, just from watching him and, being like, hey, Jaire's a great fit over the years. He's an aggressive player and rips through on balls. Like, part of it isn't just like, oh, he doesn't have a ton of interceptions relative to his career. Like, he breaks up passes. He breaks up passes. And now you give Zach Orr all these pieces, and we've seen the messaging be what it is. Like, I cannot believe that this is reality right now with the secondary that they have. So for now, it's that. And this is true here. This is a great comment. If the Ravens get pressure with 4, the backfield is going to steal a lot of possessions. That's so true. I mean, we know that the Ravens have sometimes had some trouble generating pressures with 4 guys, even 5 guys. And, the sack numbers last year for them were great, but sometimes they were a little inconsistent with when those were coming. So if they can generate pressure with 4, if Nnamdi Madubuike can continue to step up, if Travis Jones can have a breakout season, if Tavius Robinson can, he was called a centerpiece of the defense, right? You have the ability to force these quarterbacks into rushed throws, into bad throws, and into deceptive throws. Honestly, I mean, a play that I'll always remember is Marcus Peters in Houston, Deshaun Watson, and Marcus Peters essentially baiting Deshaun Watson into a throw. That's what great corners do, and Marcus was a great player for the Ravens, all things considered. Now, I know Jaire is better than Marcus, and, Marcus was awesome, and I loved Marcus's time in Baltimore, but Jaire is a player that can do that as well. And you're right. I did forget Mike Green. Like, there are so many players on this defense. There's so many guys. I can't keep up with everybody. And that's the best problem that we can have here. And for me, especially covering this team, like for Baltimore, there's so many players, star players, great depth players, quality guys all across the board. The Ravens have it. Yep. Kyle Van Noy, you mentioned guys like Roquan and, can Broderick Washington take a step? Can Aeneas Peebles make a deal? And, man, I'll tell you what, if Eric DeCosta is not done, I don't even know what I would do. I don't even know who we would sign at this point. I don't even know. I guess Clowney would be a name, but I think the Ravens truly, unless there is another guy that unexpectedly hits the market, I think they're done. And I appreciate this here from Sod Blitz, giving some context. PFF ranks Hamilton number 2, Washington number 11, Humphrey number 7, Alexander 25, Nate Wiggins 31, and Malachi Starks number 1. Obviously, that being in college football. So appreciate you, Sod Blitz, for the context there. But that's just how good that they are. Teams wish they would have like 2 guys in the top 25. And I know Ardarius is injured. Even in the top 35, the Ravens have like 5 of them. They have 5 of them. So I have to put the Ravens as the favorite to win the Super Bowl here. I'm not saying they're going to win it. That'd be foolish, right? I'm not going to get too ahead of myself and say, oh, the Ravens are winning the Super Bowl. It's over. It's over. It's over. No, of course not. I'm not. I have respect for the rest of the league. And, I understand that, they have to play the games, right? This is on paper. You have to play the games. But you now have Jaire Alexander as depth, he's going to play a big role for them this season, obviously, but you can rotate in between him, Chidobe Awuzie, TJ Tampa. It's a perfect blend of guys. It's not just all vets. It's not just young guys. You have a blend of talent. And I've always been on that train, right? Where it's great to have both. It's great to have young talent and veteran depth. This is the year. This has to be the year. Now, I'm not guaranteeing a win, but I think to me, they are the favorites. They are the favorites. So coming up in the final part of the show, we'll continue celebrating here on Locked On. We're celebrating on this show today. We'll dive into the move a little bit more, what it means for the Ravens. We'll do some takeaways and a lot more coming up on the show. Back on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher here, celebrating with you the Jaire Alexander news. The Ravens officially signed Jaire. It is done. 1 year, $4 million deal worth up to $6 million with some incentives in there. Just can't believe that money number is real. Just unbelievable. I'm going to actually check on FanDuel right now for Ravens win total. But let's see if I can find it here, because I just, the Ravens to me are the clear AFC North favorite. That was a thing even without Jaire, but I could see them. I'll probably say they're at 11.5 wins on. That'll be my guess. I'll put the official number for where they are favored, what their favorite is. All right, so their win total right now, it is, all right, 11.5. Over 11.5 is minus 110 right now over on FanDuel. Over 13.5 is plus 310 if you want to get a little spicy with that. I think this adds another win to their, I think Jaire himself adds another win. I now have them, I was at the 12-5 category. I have him at 13-4 now. I could see him maybe 14-3, but I'll put him at 13-4. I think they're going to be that good this year. The secondary is going to be awesome. And I just, man, this is true. The stars have aligned. The stars have aligned. Let's see if it works out for them. Now you look at a roster that I think can compete with anybody. Yes, you still have a couple of spots to look at. Potentially guard, like we mentioned. How's that going to play out? Trenton Simpson potential, but I think Jaire does solve a little bit of that with his versatility and how the Ravens can move Jaire all the way around. So, man, I'm telling you, this for the Ravens is an A+ move. Honestly, plus. A all the way. Give all the pluses you want. A++++++. You now have a secondary with Nate Wiggins, Marlon Humphrey, and Jaire Alexander. Oh, by the way, you also have Kyle Hamilton. Oh, by the way, you also have Malachi Starks. Oh, by the way, you got some nice depth in Chidobe Awuzie and TJ Tampa. What? Again, I've been trying to articulate my thoughts throughout this entire show, and I think that I've done my best. But sometimes I just have to take a second and be like, no way, right? I gotta check social media again. Oh, okay, whoa, this happened. Here are the pictures. He's literally standing in a room with Eric DeCosta and Lamar Jackson. They are absolutely loaded. They are absolutely loaded. Now, we'll see the number situation, too. That's interesting because Jaire is 23. Trenton Simpson wears 23. So is Trenton Simpson going to get off at 23, or is Jaire going to get a new number? Is he going to get a new number? I don't know. Actually, I'm going to check the roster right now. Is the roster been updated? Because we know that when Derrick Henry came in, Pepe Williams came up off that 22. So we're going to see. All right, Jaire's not even on the Ravens roster right now, so that answers that question. But that we're on fashion watch for the Ravens right there. And yeah, Steve, the Ravens, and this is a thing, the Ravens do keep things like this under wraps. There aren't a lot of things that leak out of that building. The Ravens, when they want something to leak, it does get leaked. But, you have Lamar's comments, and I'm thinking, oh, hey, this is going to be a little bit longer of a process. Jaire's taking his time. And I guess, he was released, a couple weeks ago at this point. So I guess he was able to explore his options. But I'll tell you what, you see teams like Kansas City with, Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, Rashee Rice with that whole situation. Obviously, Cincy with Burrow and Higgins and Chase and other teams across the league. Philly, who you're probably Philly's my pick to go back to the Super Bowl right now. So, if Baltimore and Philly meet in the Super Bowl, you got to have guys to defend. A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith. Injuries happen. It's just, I hate that it does, but it happens. And they are in such a better spot now if Jaire gets injured, okay. It's a low risk move. You don't have the money tied up of $10 million, $15 million for this season. And this is true, Steve. Bigger offers elsewhere, but he wanted to win. He wanted to come play with Lamar, play with his guy. And this brings me back to all those conversations. And this obviously was more so during the Greg Roman era about receivers don't want to play with Lamar, which was never true in the first place, right? Players want to play with Lamar. It was the system. And I know that Jaire's not a wide receiver. That doesn't really matter in the context of Jaire. But there was never a situation where players never wanted to play with Lamar. Players want to come play with Lamar, right? You heard DeAndre Hopkins talk yesterday, right? Just all of this, it all goes back to the Ravens are a winning organization. They treat their guys right. They have a reputation. And like we talked about with Chidobe Awuzie, him getting cut by Tennessee's still paying him. He has the opportunity for a year to come to Baltimore, right? Come to Baltimore, make a big move, play well, and then go get a deal elsewhere maybe. Maybe he can re-sign with the Ravens if he plays well enough. With Jaire, it's the same thing, obviously on a much larger scale, but Jaire can come in for less money. After the Green Bay thing, he can play on a one-year deal. He can prove he's still a top-of-the-line corner. And then, hey, you know what? If he gets $100 million from an up-and-coming team next year, it worked out for all sides, especially if the Ravens win a Super Bowl. So you look at this division right now. Baltimore, to me, it's so clear in a way and obvious they are the favorites here. And they have given themselves a legitimate shot to win the Super Bowl. Again, I'm not going to come on here and just scream from the rooftops the Ravens are going to win the Super Bowl. It's a given, right? I'm not going to do that. I have enough respect and enough understanding to know that, you have to play the games, right? Teams that are favored sometimes don't win it because of you got to play the games. But like Tally says here, and what's up, man? Appreciate you checking in. It's scary times. It's scary that you know what? That's one of the best ways you can describe this. And it's not scary for the Ravens. It's scary for the other teams because you got to go up against that secondary. So, man, I've been wishing on this for 4 or 5 years now. If you've been listening to me on this show, you know that I have said Jaire is my dream target for the Ravens. One day, maybe it'll happen. And today, Wednesday, June 18th, 2025, it happens to be that one day. So Jaire comes in, low risk, high reward. In fact, I call it no risk, high reward because of the player that Jaire is, especially with the money and where they are at with that. Brian McFarland, Ravens salary cap. We know that he knows his stuff. He said that the Ravens had about $5-ish million in workable cap space, and the Ravens use about 4 of that on Jaire. And I'm sure, look, this honestly could signal another extension is coming down the line where they know they need some cap space. They'd like to go into the year with salary cap space. Man, they could truly get another extension done. We're on extension watch. I don't know who that's going to be. I'm not sure it's going to be Adafe. He would make sense with his number. Obviously, Lamar is the one that makes the most sense, right? That would be the big one. But there are other options. So I'm excited. And yeah, I'm telling you, Tila, I'm with you here. I just want it to be September already. We have a lot of stuff planned on this show, by the way, that I'm excited about. But I just want to see Jaire play. I just want to see this team play. I want to get back to watching football, watching this team. And look, it's days like these during the offseason that make it so exciting. So I can't believe it. And I never want this day to end. But I also want it to end so we can get one day closer to Ravens football. And we still have minicamp to go. We still have have they even taken the field yet for minicamp? I'm not even sure. Yeah, here we go. Jaire is on the field. He's not dressed. He's just watching right now. So he won't debut in a Ravens uniform until training camp, it looks like here. So he's on the field. But, man, I can't. Is there something with Eddie Jackson going on right now? No, Eddie Jackson's making a podcast. Okay, that happened a while ago. But you move on from guys. Look, where were we last year with this team? Marcus Williams, who, honestly, I couldn't even expect that fall off. It was Marcus Williams. It was Eddie Jackson. It was Brandon Stevens, and those guys were losing them games, losing them possessions, giving up points. And you have gone from Brandon Stevens, Eddie Jackson, and Marcus Williams to Malachi Starks, Jaire Alexander, and Chidobe Awuzie. And the year 2 TJ Tampa, right? Like all of this, you have upgraded substantially, right? Substantially. And this isn't a team that had $100 million in cap space anyway. Right? They had to work within their means, work within the confines of what they had, and they still put together an offseason that to me is among the best in the NFL, all things considered. So this is the year. I'm not going to say they are going to win it, but man, I think this is the best shot they have had in the Lamar Jackson era to do so with the roster on paper. 2019 was a great opportunity. 2023, a great opportunity. Last year, a great opportunity. But I think this roster sets you up the best it has in the Lamar Jackson era. No fly zone in the secondary. The Ravens make my dreams come true, and I am pumped about it. I think this is a perfect fit no risk, high reward. And we're going to have so much more coverage for you on Locked On Ravens over the course of the week. We'll be back here tomorrow, obviously, breaking this all down even further and even more, because I can't get over that it's real. So I appreciate everybody for being here live with me. This was an awesome live stream. We go live after every piece of Ravens big news, after every Ravens game as well. We'll have some more stuff coming this year on the show as well. And of course, we're here for you 5 days a week. So on the way out, hit the like and subscribe button in video form. Follow along in audio form for that 5 day a week Ravens coverage plus more. And I'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.